Hi, this is Dr. Joyce Johnson with Designing Your Life. Just had another idea, thought I would share it with you. As you know, most of my things, my lessons come from everyday occurrences. And this is something that I talked about, I think, video before last with divine restoration. And we were sitting down talking, a friend of mine and I. She said, well, what do you do when you're the one that messed up? Can you expect God to forgive you as easily as if it just happened to you? And I said, well, yeah, as long as whatever happened, you've forgiven, you've taken your appropriate steps, yeah. So the title of this one is uh, Divine Restoration. And yeah, there is life after the storms. Okay? Life is full of storms. What are storms? Chaos, disturbances, discrepancies, distresses, all of that. That's storms. Anything that comes to just blow everything up. And I came through Katrina, so I can tell you that there's life after the storm, and sometimes even a better life, a more peaceful life, because a lot of times storms come to get your attention. And I said that before. There are The Bible teaches us that, and this took years of learning and doing a composite of it, but the Bible teaches us that there are three kinds of storms in our lives, and I went over this a little bit before. There are storms that we bring upon ourselves. Yes, there are. There are storms, and that's like Samson. Okay, that's a perfect example. He brought that upon himself, and you know the story, so I won't go into it. And there are storms that God causes. He does cause that, and I'll show you that in the scripture, like with Luke in Galilee. Read that story. And there are storms that other people cause, with Paul and Silas when they were thrown into prison. And I think that, all of us go through that. Sometimes we really do. We go through it and we don't want to go through it, but we do go through it. So her question was, can these bones live? Because she was having a hard time recuperating uh, after something. I don't want to tell her business, but she was having a hard time recuperating um, after something happened that to me wasn't that bad compared to the storms I've been in. And that is one of the ones I want to talk about. When someone is going to a storm and they go to get advice, and the person says, well, I don't think it's that bad. Now, I didn't tell her that. I don't think that's that bad because I don't have her psyche. I'm not her, plain and simple. So you can't really say that to people, whatever, not especially in ministry, because they don't come to hear what you would do and if it were you. They come to you because they want to know what to do if it were them. So yeah, so the Bible teaches us that there are three kinds. Now, you can't say one is worse than the other because they're all bad because they disrupt you. Now, I want to read this. And it's in Mark 4:35-41. And I'm going to pivot from this because this really spoke to me years and years ago when I was endeavoring to change things and endeavoring to really go into ministry. So it's been like over 30 years maybe, wanting to go into ministry, but I didn't want to have a church. I didn't want to do anything but maybe do the radio and speaking engagements, motivational, inspirational, relationship type things with God. I didn't want to do a church, you know, because you're the church. So I didn't want that. I just wanted to be that walking epistle. So while you're walking epistle, and as I read this, and you walk through life, it talks about water, and I talked to you about the rhyme of the ancient mariner the other day in his story with the, what do you call it thing? The albatross. So it's something a little bit in there, but it's a boat. So when I read this a while, years ago, I mean, the kids were small, years ago, uh, water is a symbol of life. you know, the fluidity of life, the continuity of life. It ever goes on. It's on a continuum. If water stands still, then you have a Dead Sea. So the water of your life, the living water of Christ, is continual. He's with you all the time. And that's what this was saying. And so when I read this, you know, I said, well, I'm the boat up on the water. And then certain things happen when you have people in the boat with you, you know, whatever. But let me read it and then I'll show you how it came to me. Mark 4:35-41. The day when evening came, he said unto his disciples, let us go over to the other side. Pivot here. Let us go over to the other side. Said, okay, I've decided that I'm going to do ministry. Okay. My degree is social work, so I'm going to have to go to somebody's Bible study. So Bible school. So at that time, the church I was in had one. And the pastor told me, you don't really need this because you're well studied. Yeah, well, you need it for social deodorant, which is what my professor at Loyola said. He said certain things you just need them for social deodorant to get you in and out of doors, you know, so you have that title, you know, or whatever else while you're there. But anyway, he said, let us go over to the other side. Now, I forget how many were in here, if I'd have to read the story a little bit more deeply, but I took the us to mean me and Christ, me and God. Let us go on the other side of this river here, you know, where I can enter the ministry. All right. That's the way I took it. So he left, he said, leaving the crowd behind. They took him along, that's the disciples, just as he was in the boat, just as I am without one plea, but that thy blood was shed for me, just as I am. Christ by himself is enough. But this is the thing. They left the crowd behind. Someone had to tell me, because I'm always trying to include people in things. Girl, come on here. Let's go shopping. Let's go do this. Let's go do this project. And I can tell you every last one of them failed because what's for you is for you. You cannot bring people along if they're not ready. That's your vision. You do it. Might sound harsh, but God will send you the people that you're to work with. But just because you want people to work with you now, that don't always work. And that's what I had to do. You know, you have to leave the crowd behind. And with a lot of things, as God is calling you to something else, you can't hang with the same group, but that's another story. I'm going to do that one too. It's on acceptance. But leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was, because Christ is all in all in the boat, in the vehicle to navigate the water. You see, and since we ask God to order our footsteps while we're in this navigational thing of life upon the waters of life, just take Christ just as he is. Christ in one, God in one is enough. I've always said that, and I've lived to know it's true. Okay, even though no man is an island, no man stands alone. Each one for his brother, each one something, 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 but still, you know, and, you know, this is where it really got interesting to me. And there were also other boats with him, okay? Then all of a sudden, the scripture says, a furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly, you know, turned over, in other words. You know, it was almost destroyed. And I remember the winds of Katrina. We actually stood outside because we had gone up to just outside of Baton Rouge to my uncle, and they weren't getting it as bad as New Orleans was. And so we actually, when the eye was passing over, we actually went outside and stood out there. And to the right of us, everything was roofs. We were crazy to stand out there, but we were standing out there praying that it would pass over real quick. But the winds were something. I've never seen trees bend. I've never seen what I saw there. And it was very little rain, but the winds were fierce, you know, a furious squall. But we came out of it. So they nearly drowned. But anyway, Jesus was with them in the storm, sleeping on a cushion. Now, this is the thing you have to remember. This is the good news of the gospel. People say, why do you tell your stories the way you do? The good news implies that there's bad news. The good news comes to dispel the bad news. And the light, which is Jesus Christ, is the light, the truth, the life, the truth, and the way, and all of that, the light of the world. He comes to dispel the darkness out of your life. But you've got to be willing to have him in the boat with you. So can these bones live? Of course they can. But if you try to do it by yourself sometime, it's not so successful. And it's a process as well. I've learned that. The good news for me was, and looking back over it, um, and with people I know too, you can see how decisions you made got you in something, but better decisions got you out. And the decision that you made with Christ is the one that got you out. So you know it's a three part. So this is part one. So I'm going to come back and do part two.